At the top of a lonely hill in southern Illinois stands a mansion built on pain. Its red bricks glow warm in the daylight, but when the night falls, they turn the color of ash. Inside, the air hums with something heavy. Footsteps echo where no one walks, chains rattle where no one moves, and the wind rolls in from the river. You can almost hear it, a low, mournful sound rising through the floorboards. Some say it's just the house settling. Others know better. This is the old slave house. Tonight we're heading deep into the history of a mansion that doesn't just hold ghosts, it created them. A place where greed dressed itself as business and cruelty hid behind a locked door. This is the story of John Hart Crenshaw and the house where freedom was bought, sold, and buried. The year was 1838. Illinois called itself a free state, but freedom had fine print. John Hart Crenshaw was one of the wealthiest men in southern Illinois. He owned salt mines along the Ohio River, so brutal that free laborers refused to work them. So Crenshaw found another way. He leased enslaved people from neighboring states, men and women forced to dig, carry, and haul until their bodies broke. And at night, he locked them in the attic of his grand home on Hickory Hill, just outside of the town of Equality. By day, it was known as the Salt King's house. Locals whispered another name, the old slave house. From the outside, it looked like any other southern mansion, tall white columns, long verandas, and sunlight spilling across the fields. But above the ceiling, hidden beneath the roof, was another world, a world built for captivity. The attic held rows of narrow cells, wooden stalls barely big enough to lie down in. Iron rings were bolted into the floor. The smell of rust, sweat, and rot clung to the wood. Neighbors whispered that wagons came up the hill at night, covered in canvas, carrying people who screamed until their voices broke. Crenshaw was accused twice of kidnapping free black men and women, dragging them across the river and selling them into slavery. He was never convicted. Money and silence protected him. The walls kept the truth, and those walls, some people say, never stopped whispering. When Crenshaw died in 1871, his family tried to keep the mansion alive, but the house turned against them. Doors slammed on their own, footsteps pounded across the attic floor, chains rattled in the dark, followed by cries of voices that hadn't been heard in 100 years. By the mid-1900s, no one dared to stay there after sunset. Locals said the house felt alive, breathing, listening, waiting. In winter, even when the world outside froze, no frost ever formed on the attic windows. And those who tried to spend the night, they say the house watched them. In the 1960s, the house reopened for tours. Reporters, ghost hunters, and skeptics all climbed the narrow stairs, flashlights cutting through decades of dust. Some heard the sound of chains dragging. Others felt a cold hand brush their arms in the dark. Two Marine veterans, tough men who survived combat, lasted less than 20 minutes inside. When they stumbled out, pale and shaking, one whispered, "I don't know what I heard, but it wasn't human." Even the bravest left shaken. Visitors describe a sudden cold wave sweeping across the attic, like something unseen walking straight through them. What makes Old Slave House different from most hauntings is this. The horror isn't folklore, it's history. Those iron rings were real. Those walls held real people, and their pain didn't vanish when the doors were sealed shut. The state of Illinois eventually bought the property in the early 2000s, closing it to the public. Officially, it's preserved as a historic site. Unofficially, locals still call it one of the most haunted places in the Midwest. They say faint lights flicker in the attic, like lanterns swinging in invisible hands. Chains clink in rooms where no one stands, and sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear them. Not angry, not vengeful, just waiting. Waiting for someone to finally remember them. Here are 3 creepy facts to haunt your day. John Hart Crenshaw was indicted twice for kidnapping free black men and women into slavery, but he was never convicted. Historians believe he trafficked hundreds of people. The attic cell still exists, complete with iron rings, wooden stalls, and claw marks that investigators and journalists have all documented. 1978, a reporter spent the night inside and later called it one of the most terrifying nights of his life. This story isn't about ghosts, it's about guilt. The old slave house is haunted not by spirits, but by memory. because when cruelty is buried instead of faced, it doesn't rest. I think about the people dragged across the river, taken from their homes, stripped of their names, their families, and their futures. And I can't help but wonder, maybe the haunting isn't punishment, maybe it's protest, a way for history to whisper, don't forget me. When we tell stories like this, we're not just chasing chills, we're keeping the lights on for the truth, even when it hurts to look. Some houses are haunted by spirits, others by people who built them, and some, like this one, are haunted by silence, the kind that comes from everyone who looked away. Until next time, stay curious and always, always stay haunted.